Comair passengers have been left stranded and upset after Kulula and British Airways flights were cancelled. Some have made their way back to the OR Tambo International Airport, unaware that flights have been cancelled. Just yesterday, the South African Civil Aviation Authority suspended Kulula and British Airways flights for the next 24 hours. Now, according to SACA, this is due to safety concerns. Our reporter, Moachi, is at the airport covering the story for us. A very good morning to you. A series of mid-air emergencies have led to this decision that really has affected passengers who've been left frustrated and upset.
Absolutely, Mpho. Before we get into the series of what we've seen in the news around, what has happened with Comair flights and some of the safety concerns that have been raised here, just, some of the passengers that we've spoken to off camera, a lot of them really just rushing to try get onto the next flight. They have raised their frustrations about how they have not received any communication from Comair, so that being British Airways and Kulula, that they have not received any communication that flights have been cancelled. The one gentleman that I spoke to really just saying he does not understand how the flights were cancelled, yet they did not even send a message. I spoke to another family. They are flying through to Cape Town, saying that, the concern for them is that they had to find out on Twitter about these flights being cancelled. But as you mentioned, we have definitely seen concerns that have been raised around some of the safety issues here when it comes to Kulula and British Airways. Mpho, my colleague Senzo is just going to show you the notices that have been put up here by Kulula.com around the flights being cancelled. We've seen a few people come through here to actually get onto their flights, but they are then diverted to the customer care to ensure that they are able to get onto another flight. So we've had an emergency landing at the Eastern Cape Airport. This is due to faulty landing gear. You'd remember that this took place from a British Airways flight from East London to Johannesburg. And most recently, we've also seen that Kulula was forced that a flight from Lanseria to Cape Town to be diverted here to the OR Tambo International Airport over an engine-related problem. And of course, then SACA really saying that, they are concerned about these issues, several issues in the past couple of months, such as engine failures, engine malfunction, and landing gear malfunctions as well, Mpho. So those are just some of the issues that SACA has really raised with Comair. We understand that the flights are supposed to be up and going again from about midday following the suspension of flights by SACA, and it's supposed to be about 24-hour suspension. But we wait and see whether that will actually take place, whether these flights will once again be in the air and ready to take passengers safely to their destinations. We definitely will be speaking to some of these Kulula passengers and British Airways as well around their frustrations and having to change their flights now at the last minute. One of the ladies that we spoke to here, very upset, saying that her mom is sick and she needs to get to Cape Town as quickly as possible. And if there was communication about the cancellation of these flights, that would have assisted quite a bit. We did see Kulula.com mentioning that passengers should not make their way to the airport. This was yesterday, that passengers should not make their way to the airport. Instead, they should rather wait on communique around what the next plan and the next stage will then be when it comes to the suspension of their flights. But that message clearly not filtering down to all their passengers, and a lot of them really arriving here upset that they still have to now try and find another flight. An inconvenience financially, but also just time-wise for those that had planned to do other things around the country, but also the big thing around the inconvenience really of financial inconvenience that has arisen in this case. You can see there a passenger trying to find out what is now the next step, what should happen. We have seen this consistently happening as we stand here by the Kulula boarding area or flight checking area, the check-in space here by Kulula.com, and we've seen that it's empty here, but we've seen a lot of people come here trying to check in and to get onto their flight, but they are then turned through to the customer care for them to be able to get a different flight.
Definitely a number of inconveniences, as you speak and interact to some people who were hoping to get on a plane. Now, looking at what the Sunday Times has said in terms of Comair's response, Comair has said that this move is unjustified. But you also speak about how perhaps by midday there could be some form of resolution. But with the operator being given 24 hours, have they had the room to demonstrate that the risk and safety management systems are effective in managing what could really be catastrophic? The hazards, the risk is something that cannot be ignored.
Well, indeed, Mpho, you cannot definitely ignore the hazards that could possibly take place should passengers be in a plane and something then suddenly happens. That is something that Comair cannot ignore at this stage. In just 1 month, they saw issues, they saw malfunctioning of some of the equipment in Kulula.com air flights and in a British Airways flight. We did have a very brief conversation with some representatives here from Comair. We are hoping to speak to the spokesperson within the time that we are here about what plans have they put in place to ensure that flights can resume once again. And you know, the inconvenience of it all really for passengers is something that, you know, you just see it on the frustration on their faces. Comair indeed has had 24 hours to actually ensure that all their planes are safe for passengers to board. However, whether or not they were able to do that in that 24-hour period, that is yet to be seen. We did hear yesterday on Newzroom Afrika from SECA that this suspension could possibly be extended. It does not necessarily mean that they will have the 24 hours only suspension at this stage with Comair flights. We did hear from SECA saying that there is a possibility that it could be extended if they are unable to provide the correct documentation and really just showing them that the flights are now safe to board. So at this point, we wait to see what Comair has done, whether they have been able to provide the necessary documentation and really to prove to SECA that their flights are actually safe to board.
Absolutely. Let's leave it there for now.